When I signed those nursing home admission papers with trembling hands, my son didn't even look at me. I had just given him $420,000, everything I had saved in 38 years of cleaning other people's houses, and he left me there with $127,000 in debt that he had put in my name. But before I continue, check if you're already subscribed to this channel. If you haven't done it yet, subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more stories like this. And leave me a comment telling me what part of the United States or the world you're watching from. I love knowing where you are. My name is Catherine Williams. I'm 55 years old and I worked 38 years as a housekeeper in the Philadelphia suburbs. I still keep my grandmother's gold locket that she gave me when I turned 18, the same one she wore when she immigrated from Ireland in 1952. That locket represented 3 generations of women who worked until their hands bled to give their children better lives. But none of them imagined that sacrifice could turn into abandonment. I met my son David's true face 5 years ago, right after my husband passed away from cancer. I lived in a small 2-bedroom house in Norristown, Pennsylvania, a modest house, but paid off. The result of 38 years of scrubbing floors, cleaning toilets, and washing windows in mansions where I was invisible. David showed up 3 weeks after the funeral with his wife Jessica. Jessica wore a perfect navy blue pantsuit, sleek blonde hair, and a smile that never reached her cold gray eyes. David told me he was worried about me, that a 50-year-old woman shouldn't live alone in that neighborhood. The first warning sign was subtle. Jessica suggested I sell my house and give them the money as a down payment for a bigger property where I would have my own space. She said it was a family investment, that David was starting a tech consulting business that would make us all rich. I had just lost my companion of 32 years and desperately needed to feel useful, needed. I gave them $280,000, everything I got from selling my house. 4 months later, when I moved into my space, I discovered it was a converted garage in the back of their property in Cheltenham. It was 180 square feet with a tiny bathroom, no heating, and a window that faced a brick wall. The main house had 5 bedrooms, all occupied by them, David's home office, Jessica's yoga room, and 2 guest rooms that were never used. That first year, they asked me for $2,800 monthly for shared expenses. I was receiving $4,200 from Social Security and my small pension. I had Omero $400 left for everything else, my blood pressure medication, clothes, personal needs. 7 months later, Jessica told me they needed $3,600 monthly because property taxes had gone up significantly. The greatest humiliation came on a December afternoon exactly 3 years ago. It was Christmas. I had worked double shifts on 28 consecutive Christmases, cleaning houses while other families celebrated. That Christmas, Jessica organized a family dinner. She asked me to cook for 18 people, buy all the ingredients with my money, and wash all the dishes afterward. When I finished at 3 a.m., with swollen hands aching from arthritis that I developed from decades of scrubbing floors, I found an envelope on my bed with $300 and a note. Thanks for the help. Everything was delicious. Merry Christmas. They paid me like I was the hired help. That night I cried until I had no tears left. I looked at my grandmother's gold locket on my small nightstand and understood I had betrayed the legacy of 3 generations of strong women. My grandmother never would have allowed this. My mother never would have accepted this. But I, Catherine Williams, housekeeper with 38 years of experience making other people's homes shine, had become a shadow in the house I had paid for. 2 months later, in February, I needed gallbladder surgery. It was urgent. I asked David to take me to the hospital. He said he had an important client meeting. I asked Jessica. She said she had a hair appointment. I went alone in an Uber that cost me $47. I had surgery alone. I woke up alone. I came home alone with a 6-inch incision and pain that split me in 2. When I got home, stumbling, Jessica was in the living room getting a pedicure done by a professional who had come to the house. She looked at me and said, "Oh, you're back. Hey, can you make dinner? David gets home in an hour and he's really hungry. She didn't ask how the surgery went. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She asked nothing. That's when everything changed. But before I tell you what I did, I want to ask you something personal. This channel exists because people like you take a second to subscribe and share these stories. If this story is touching your heart, if you know someone who needs to hear it, share it. Sometimes a story can change someone's life. It can give them the strength they need to say, I also deserve respect. That night, with my wound bleeding and my dignity shattered, I called my friend Linda, a fellow housekeeper for 32 years. I told her everything. She said something I'll never forget. Catherine, love that doesn't value you is called something else. It's called exploitation. And you weren't born to be exploited, you were born to be respected. The next day, 25 minutes after David and Jessica left for work, I started investigating. I went through the house papers. The deed was only in David's name. The $280,000 I had given appeared as an interest-free family loan that I had borrowed from him. They had forged my signature. They had inverted the story. According to the documents, I owed them money. I felt the floor open beneath my feet. But this time, instead of sinking, I filled with a cold, crystalline rage. I took photos of everything, every document, every receipt, every bank transfer I had made over 5 years. They totaled $420,000 between the down payment, monthly help, and additional loans they said I had requested. And even worse, they had opened 3 credit cards in my name. I owed $127,000 that I never spent. 3 days later, on a Monday morning, I hired a lawyer specializing in elder financial abuse. It cost me $8,500 from my secret savings, money I had hidden for years in an account they didn't know about. The lawyer told me I had a solid case, but the process would be long and painful. I told her I didn't care. I had already lived 5 years of pain. A little more wouldn't kill me. But I didn't just want legal justice. I wanted my life back. I wanted myself back. So I did something I'd never done in 55 years of life. I prioritized my own well-being over unconditional maternal love. I looked for a small studio apartment in Manayunk, 30 minutes away, a bright place with large windows and a view of the Squealkill River. It cost $100 monthly, but there nobody would treat me like a servant. There, I would own my own life. The day I left was a Thursday. David and Jessica had gone on a trip to Miami Beach for the weekend, using money I knew came from credit cards in my name. I packed my 2 suitcases, my clothes, my photos, my grandmother's gold locket, and my personal documents. I left a letter on the dining room table along with the garage keys. The letter said, David, for 5 years you treated me like an ATM and domestic help. You took $420,000 from me, left me with $127,000 in debt, my dignity, and almost my health. Today I'm taking back my life. My lawyer will be in contact with you. I will no longer be invisible. With pain, but with clarity, your mother. And I left. I closed that door and didn't look back. The first 4 months in my new studio were the loneliest of my life. David called me 63 times. I didn't answer any. Jessica sent me messages saying I was selfish, a bad mother, a bitter old woman. I blocked them both. The silence was painful, but the peace was more powerful. I used that time to heal, physically and emotionally. My gallbladder incision healed, but the wound in my heart took longer. I started going to a support group for elderly people in financial abuse situations. There I met 31 women living similar stories. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. I had just been blind. 8 months later, the legal process moved forward. The lawyer presented all the evidence, photos of forged documents, receipts of transfers, testimonies from neighbors who confirmed my condition as invisible domestic help, credit card statements showing purchases I never made. The judge, a 58-year-old woman with gray hair and a firm gaze, reviewed every page. Finally, she looked at me and said, "Mrs. Williams, I'm deeply sorry you had to go this far to defend your basic right to dignity. The ruling was clear. David had to return the $420,000 to me in monthly payments of $7,000 for 5 years. He was also responsible for the $127,000 credit card debt. If he didn't comply, his house would be seized. The identity theft and document forgery could lead to criminal charges if I decided to proceed. I didn't. I didn't want to destroy my son. I just wanted justice." 11 months after the ruling in November, David knocked on my studio door. He came alone. He wore a worn gray jacket, deep dark circles under his eyes, and no longer had that arrogance that characterized him. He had divorced Jessica 4 months earlier. She left when she found out the house would have to be sold to pay me back. David looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I have no excuses. I was a terrible son. I used you. I ignored you. I hurt you. And the worst part is I convinced myself I was helping you by giving you a place to live. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I finally understood what I did to you." I looked at him in silence for what felt like an eternity. My grandmother's gold locket ticked softly on the table. Finally I said, "David, I love you. I'll always love you. You're my son. But love without respect is poison. And I'm no longer drinking poison. If you want to rebuild our relationship, it will be on my terms. With respect. With boundaries. With reciprocity. Or it won't happen at all." He nodded. He cried, and he left. Today, 2 years after that encounter, David visits me every 2 weeks. He brings food that he cooks himself. He asks how I am. He listens to my stories. He has paid me $168,000 of the $420,000 he owes me. There's still $252,000 left, but he pays religiously every month. The credit card debt is paid off. It's no longer the relationship we had before. It never will be. But it's an honest relationship with clear boundaries and mutual respect. I've received letters from women across America who heard my story when I shared it at the support group, and it went online. Martha, 68, from Chicago, wrote to me, "Your courage gave me strength to leave my daughter's house where I was living enslaved. Today, I live alone, humbly, but with dignity." Teresa, 62, from Seattle. "I cried when I read your story because it was mine. Thank you for showing me it's never too late." And Rosa, 71, from Phoenix. "I thought it was my duty to sacrifice myself until I died. Your story reminded me that I matter too. Today, I'm 55 years old. I live in my small, bright studio in Manayunk, Philadelphia. Every morning I wake up, make my coffee, and look out the window at the Schuylkill River where people jog and walk their dogs. I no longer have a big house. I no longer have abundant savings. But I have something far more valuable. I have my dignity intact. I have peace. I have an honest relationship with my son, though limited. And I have absolute certainty that I did the right thing. My grandmother's gold locket still sits on my bedside table. Sometimes I hold it in my hands and think of her, my mother, and all the women who came before me. And I think I finally honored their legacy. Because they taught me to take care of others, but I learned on my own that I also needed to take care of myself. Because true love doesn't ask you to destroy yourself to prove it. True love is built on respect, reciprocity, and mutual dignity. And because it's never, never too late to choose yourself. If you're living a similar situation, if you feel your love is being exploited, if you think it's too late to change, you're wrong. It's never too late. Dignity has no expiration date. And you deserve respect, regardless of your age, regardless of how much you love, regardless of how long you've endured. You deserve to be valued, always. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect, if you know someone who needs to hear it, share it, and stay for the next story, where I'll tell you about a woman who discovered her best friend of 35 years had been sabotaging her career from the very beginning. It's a story of betrayal, but also of renaissance. Don't miss it. See you soon.